G'day legends. Today we're going to take a look at a fairly new plugin from a company called California Dynamic. It is a saturation plugin called Alkane. Now they refer to it as a quad circuit harmonics processor. So within this plugin you get 4 different types of saturation. There is tube, tape, transformer and synth. And there is also a tone shaping section. There's FUD and shine, so you can add some nice thump to the low end and a bit of sparkle to the top end, as well as it has parallel processing, as well as a built-in EQ with filters and a couple of bands for really shaping the sound. So they sent me the plugin a couple of weeks back and I've been using it here and there throughout different mixes and getting a feel for it. So I'm going to take you through the way that I have used it in a couple of these mixes and show you what it's all about. So where better to start than on some drums. And I've got some big, punchy, kind of gritty drums that I really wanted to drive a little bit harder in this mix, and Alkane just does an amazing job at that. So I'm going to show you the settings that I've got here. We've got the tube mode and I've got a tiny bit of shine being pushed into this, and I've got the wet and dry signal at about 75%, and then I've got the color knob turned up to 21, and this is basically our level of saturation. The harder you drive this, the crunchier it gets. And then in our EQ section, we've got a little bit of a high pass filter up to 38 Hertz. And then we've got a low pass filter up to around 15K. And down here, you can boost the Q, so you can give yourself a nice little boost in the high end if you want to compensate for that roll off that you're giving it. So ultimately cutting the super high frequencies, but adding a little bit of top end as well at the same time. And then because I felt like these drums could use a little bit of mid-range push to them, I'm boosting at 1.8K, just a tiny 1.6 dBs there. And then I'm boosting at 558 Hertz, about a 2 dB boost there. So giving the drums a little bit of mid-range dirt. So you can hear it adds some really nice excitement and gives the drums a little bit of extra energy. Okay, so let me show you the 4 different flavors of Alkane. Pretty awesome. 4 very different sounding saturation modules there that all sound really cool in their own right. So if you want a little bit of extra sparkle, the tube sounds really good. If you want that kind of warm, thick, cozy kind of saturation, tube sounds great. The transformer has a really nice sheen to it. It's a little bit edgy. And then the synth saturation has its own sound altogether. You can hear it in the low end. The low end sounds a little bit different, like the kick really starts to change its tone. Really unique kind of tone there, which is really cool. So on the mix, I love the tube sound, but let's dial in like a tape kind of sound on these drums. That sounds pretty great to me. Really made it nice, thick and warm, but also present at the same time. So cool that you can do it all in one plugin, dial in the right amount of saturation, do a little tone shape, as well as then overall shape the sound and clean it up a little bit more, and then dial it in with parallel processing at the same time just to find that real sweet spot. Okay, let's say that you don't want to saturate the full signal like that. Let's say we just want to drive the mid-range of the drums a little bit more. Let's play with these EQ filters and the parallel processing, and let's see what we can dial in. sounds pretty cool. We're just driving the mids, we're keeping the lows and the highs fairly clean without any saturation on those, and overall it's just making the drum sound really big. So I really dig that. Being able to drive and saturate a certain area of the frequency range and then blend that back in with your dry signal, and then having a little bit of that FUD and shine in there, you can really change the sound of your source depending how creative you want to get. Like one more example while we're on the drums. So let's just say we want to add a bit of sparkle to the drums. So we can do a low cut all the way up to around, let's just go high, like 10K. Now let's drive this band and get it nice and sparkly. So that's pretty awesome. You can basically create your own exciter within this plugin. And using this built-in EQ and the filters means that you can excite any area that you want. Just shows how versatile it is, and even once you've got it dialed in, you can then play around with switching through the different saturation modes and see which one sounds best to you. Super cool. All right, so drums and saturation always go great together. So let's try this out on another source. So for this next example, I've only really just started mixing this song, but I have Alkane on the bass. And I want to show you how I'm using it to bring the bass out in the mix and help it stand out, because the bass in this song is pretty important. Here I was adding a nice clarity to the bass. When you have this turned off, it kind of just sounds like the bass sort of slips back in the mix. Sounds a little bit softer and a little more undefined. But when we have this turned on, you can hear it helps it cut. So let's bypass it off and on in the context of the mix. So it definitely helps it cut through and stand out a little bit more. So we're driving into the tape mode, about 38% there, a little bit of FUD and shine. And then we're using the EQ filter to shape this as well. Got a little roll off up to around 38 Hertz. And we've got a 6 dB boost at around 157 Hertz. That's where I really want to focus the low energy of the bass. And then we're boosting around 6 dB at around 1.2K. And that's where we're going to get a little bit more cut out of the bass. And then we just rolled off the highs up to around 5K. And then I've got the dry and wet at about 50%. So it's a really half-half blend here. Let's have a listen to what it sounds like when we push it all the way to 100. So you can hear it's adding a nice bit of grit, and that harmonic saturation is what's helping the bass cut through the mix and be a little bit clearer. And being able to push the frequencies in this EQ where I really want to hype the bass up really helps as well. Definitely helping this bass have a little bit more character and stand out in the mix. Okay, so how about on a vocal? Let's see if we can try this out on a bit of a pop punk vocal, add a little bit of grit, a little bit of color to it, see how it sounds.
I'm used to all the bad news, it's the good news I ignore. I'm used to having something, but always wanting more.
Sounds pretty cool.
I'm used to all the bad news, it's the good news I ignore. I'm used to having something, but always wanting more.
I'm liking that. Don't really want to get the low end too bloated with saturation. So kind of getting this high pass filter with a gentle roll off is sounding pretty good.
I'm used to all the bad news, it's the good news I ignore. I'm used to having something, but always wanting more.
Around 21% sounds pretty nice. A nice balance between the clean and the crunchy sound. Let's hear it in the mix.
I'm used to all the bad news, it's the good news I ignore. I'm used to having something, but always...
That sounds pretty good. Adds a nice bit of edge to the vocal, which suits this style really well. For one more example, this can sound really nice on the mix bus or in a mastering setting. You can really add a nice sheen and polish to your mix. Okay, I'm just going to play the track and dial something in. Sounds pretty nice, really sweetening the track up. So as you can see, it can sound really nice on the mix bus, really cool in a mastering setting. You can really make a track come to life, adding a little bit of saturation and excitement, and then being able to play with the mix knob to find that sweet spot is just awesome. So overall, I think this is a really nice saturation plugin. You got 4 really cool modules that you can play around with and get a lot of different colors out of it. If I had one drawback on the plugin, it's probably the price point. It does come in pretty steep. It's $299 US. But the thing is, if it's a plugin that you use all the time, then a price like that doesn't really matter in the end, because you're going to get the value out of it if you are mastering a bunch of songs and you're using this on nearly every master, or you're using it in every mix. And that's where the value comes out of a plugin like that. Like for me, I remember buying Melodyne Studio, and that was a lot of money. But I use Melodyne every day, and I have used Melodyne every day for the last 10 years. So I've definitely got my money's worth an investment out of a plugin like that. And the same could be for a plugin like this. If you use it all the time, then a price point like that doesn't really matter in the end. So what you should do is a 14-day free trial. Try the plugin out, see if you really love it enough to want to go and drop some coin on it. And if you do decide to purchase it, make sure you use the discount link in the description below. The guys have sent me a link so that my viewers can get a little bit of a discount. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that. No commissions from the sales come back to the channel, but it does help knock the price down a little bit for you guys. But I'm keen to hear what you guys think of the plugin, so please leave a comment below. Let me know if you think it sounds good, because for me personally, I think it sounds really nice. It's a really smooth sounding saturation plugin, and just with all the bells and whistles, you can really dial in your sounds and get them just right. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out the description link below. Go to my website, check out my range of drum samples and mix courses. Grabbing any of those is a massive support to the channel and for the time it goes into making these kinds of videos. If you're interested in checking out some of my drum samples and want to hear what they sound like, check out this next video coming up where I'll take you through my one-shots sample pack.